don't understand the idea of ancestral patterns. Like it makes sense, but how does it work? Good question. Good question. I feel like books could be and may have been written on this topic. Um, I won't get to all of it here, but I can speak to some of the layers there. And so let's see. Well, let's start with we'll start with things that are obvious that we can all basically agree on, right? The observable, obvious things. Depending on the genetic predisposition or the genetic material that my parents and grandparents and great grandparents are made of, I have certain qualities like this color hair and these color eyes and this color skin and this particular facial structure and this height and this physical disposition, right? There are things that science is recognizing as genetic predispositions, things like different physical conditions, whether it's blanking on them, but we all know what it is. Maybe like being predisposed to being diabetic or certain types of cancers or things like this, heart conditions, bone iron deficiency, bone deficiency, things like this. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, so my understanding there is kind of thin, but generally speaking, there are these physical and genetic components that we can all agree are passed down from generation to generation. Even being, I'm left-handed, and they say it skips a generation, right? Which is very fascinating from a constellations perspective. And what I understand is that I believe my grandfather, my mom's dad, was left-handed, right? So there it is. Oh, look at that. The left-handedness skipped a generation. And that's how it works. Many other things skip generations. We also inherit things that are less tangible, but that we can still observe. Very obvious, very basic, but we inherit things like the language that our parents spoke, most likely, and oftentimes the language that our grandparents spoke, unless they immigrated and you learned a new language. We inherit certain cultural influences. It might be language, it might be certain forms of expression, it might be types of food that we eat, it might be holidays that we celebrate, all different kinds of cultural and societal environmental influences. Yeah, even things as simple as family recipes. I mean, we inherit these kinds of things, right? There are very clear things that don't exist in us physically, but that exist in our environment that we also inherit, right? We now know that there are certain mental and emotional predispositions that we inherit. Science acknowledges this from one perspective. Some people are more prone to things like depression or anxiety based on their parents and based on their upbringing and that influence, right? There are things that show up based on what happens while we're in the womb, all these different kinds of things. So then when it comes to our deeper patterning, right, like more specific behavioral things, I mean, we see it in something like depression, right? We can inherit a predisposition for that. This is demonstrated genetically. But the deeper question that I ask is, what brought that about to begin with? Why is that coded into the genes? Why did those genes become expressed? What is happening there? Where did that come from? What's the root of that depression? At some point, somewhere, someone did not have depression. What were the environmental factors? What were the conditions, the life experiences that turned on those genes? And perhaps you can find that within your lineage, perhaps not, but say it was like a great grandparent who had super intense war trauma or something. And that person, for the rest of their life, because of those experiences, carried this deep depression with them. The gene was expressed. And then look, it was passed on to the grandparents, and then it was passed on to the parents. And then here, this person shows up in a family constellation session saying, I've been living with this depression my whole life. What do I do? Well, what was that depression attempting to do that was good for that great grandparent? Why was that strategy adopted? Why did that become expressed? There's always a positive intention. There's always a good reason for that. Yeah. And perhaps it was that that great grandparent was rejected from the family, right? Maybe that person did something, or was misunderstood in some way, or had some situation happen, and the family said, get out of here, we reject you. And perhaps that person, in their loneliness, in their isolation, developed this depression, right? There's a positive intention there. There's a reason, there's a valid reason that that depression happened, right? And so one way, and I have this necklace here that I'll use as a demonstration, these malas. If a person or an energy is rejected, right? If you push an energy away, push it, push it, push it, push it, push it, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, what do you know? It swings back. Yeah. It goes like this. And eventually it finds an equilibrium point, a point of balance, hopefully. Right. And there's a what's called a presupposition in NLP, in neurolinguistic programming, that says any energy that is excluded, any energy that is pushed away, this includes family members. This is also in the orders of love within family constellations. Any member of a family that is excluded will seek to be included, right? Where it becomes a little bit more perhaps metaphysical, or if you're aware of Rupert Sheldrake's research into morphogenetic fields, morphic resonance, right? If you're not familiar, go look it up. It's fascinating. What we can see within constellation sessions is that if a grandparent was pushed away and rejected, a family member in a later generation will interestingly come into the family and express a very similar, if not identical, dynamic within themselves. So, for example, say a grandparent was rejected from the family because they were alcoholic, right? And so the family rejected them. They said, get out of here. We don't want you here. Go away. You're not part of this family anymore. They pushed him out, pushed him out, pushed him out, pushed him out, pushed him out. And then skips a generation, perhaps. And then, what do you know? It comes swinging back in. Any energy that is excluded will seek to be included. There's a reason that alcoholism, that addiction was there, right? And so perhaps the grandchild comes into the family and expresses that same alcoholism, something very similar. Yeah. And perhaps they experience this rejection from the family. And what's happening on a meta level, what you can look at and observe, is that energy is recurring within that family so that it can be addressed and worked through and acknowledged and experienced and felt and processed and grown through, perhaps. That's my personal belief, is that they all happen, all these energies happen and are expressed so that life can grow through us and move and evolve. And so what happens is that when in a session, when that person comes in and says, I have this alcoholism and I want to shift it, right? We don't reject the behavior. We don't reject it, because any energy that's excluded or rejected will seek to be included, right? We don't push it away. We don't say you don't belong here. What we say is, let's find the positive intention behind it. Yeah. One of the orders of love, or one of the observations within family constellations, is that oftentimes, not always, but many times, an addiction is related to a person's father. And oftentimes, an addiction is a replacement for a father, similar to very acute religious, heavily religious spiritualities. Oftentimes, it's literally Father God, the Almighty Father, is here to protect me and to keep me safe and to be here with me, right? It's a literal replacement for the Father. And if you look at it, and there's studies about this, there's a very clear demonstration that people who suffer or experience addiction also have a very challenging or complicated relationship with their father. Sometimes father was absent, sometimes other factors are involved. So, for example, that grandparent who was alcoholic, perhaps they lost their father early in their life, and they took this alcohol to be, this will never leave me. Maybe unconsciously they felt, my dad abandoned me, my dad left me, I don't know what happened, what did I do wrong, why did he leave, why did he pass on, I needed him. And then this bottle will never leave my side. It will not say no to me, it will not abandon me, it won't leave me. The positive intention there, do you see it? Do you see it? How beautiful. How beautiful. I don't agree necessarily with the pattern, but I can see the beauty. I can see the positive intention behind the alcoholism, right? Once a person sees this and they see that that was experienced by their grandparent, and that grandparent had a very real reason for that being there, but this person in their own lifetime says, I had lovely parents. They were both there. They supported me. They were here for me. I could have used some more of this and that, but generally they showed up. So I don't understand why this depression has been here. Well, perhaps that energy that got rejected in your grandparents is now coming through to be resolved and healed through you. Yeah. And so what we do in that instance is we give that pattern, we give that depression back to the grandparent, while acknowledging that grandparent for their life experience, acknowledging and including them into the family system, and saying, hey, I see that you were rejected. I see that nobody was looking out for you. I see that you lost your connection, your sense of belonging to this family. I've tried to include you. I've tried to bring you into connection. I've tried to help you belong to this family by inheriting this energy and by being loyal to that energy, because in this way you were included. I am willing to do it differently. I'm ready to give you back that, while still including you, while still acknowledging that you have a place in this family. And I'm going to do it differently now. Thank you for teaching me the importance of living my own life and having joy. Yeah, this is the kind of way that this unfolds, and how these ancestral patterns show up in our life and how we work with them. It's a very generalized overview, but this is the basic kind of components that are involved there. And I'll say, last little bit on that, a huge part of the healing is the pure acceptance of all of it exactly as it is. Just acknowledging and embracing it all as it is.